The world is opening up for travel right now, and lots of us are so excited about that and getting out there. We're tired of being confined and not being able to get out and doing what we want to do. And so there are a lot of questions that people have. They have lots of enthusiasm and they can't wait to get out there. But there's some questions that they're asking themselves, like, okay, where do I go? And how long will I be gone for? Okay, and the most important question is, can I afford it? And where it is that I want to go. So retired people have special challenges, and in many ways are just the same as everybody else. They're excited to get out there too. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how retired folks and others can travel as long and as well as they can. And we're going to give you some tools on how to do that. For some people, making that big decision to let's get out there and let's just take a trip, for some people that's pretty easy. They may think, hey, I'm going to Vegas and for just a great weekend, and I'm going to stay at Bellagio, and I'm just going to eat the biggest steak and have the best cocktails in the world, and I'm just going to have a great time. Of course, Las Vegas is an expensive place, but hey, it's revenge. We're going to get out there and do it. And there's a certain logic to that, and I'm not saying people shouldn't do that, but there is a difference a little bit between retired people and those who aren't. If you aren't retired and you're, say, in your mid-20s or 30s, you can take an extravagant vacation and you can do it without a lot of fear, because you've got it's probably more than you can afford right now, and you're going to be putting stuff on your credit card. Okay, normal. But you've got a lot of years of earning power left to make up for any deficit in your budget that you've got for traveling. Retired people, it's a little bit different because we face the same financial constraints, but our time frame is compressed. I mean, we've only got so many years left to get out there. And if we take too many trips that are terribly expensive, well, that's going to reduce the amount that we have available for the rest of our lives. And for those of us who love to travel in retirement, that's not a place we want to be, where we don't have enough money to do that. There are some principles of getting ready for a trip, and it doesn't make any difference how extravagant or budget-minded your trip is. The rules are still the same. I retired at age 56. I'm 73 now. Tanya retired at 60. She's 63. And we've been traveling for a long time. We've been to either been to or lived in 123 countries. And we kind of know what we're talking about. So we know how we can make our money last and live the kind of life that we do. So tip number one. These may sound so basic, but they're so important. Tip number one is have an annual budget. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that there. This is just an example. So I'm going to use this example. Let's say that we know how much our income is. Let's say we have an annual income of $80,000. Well, for retirees, that's not so hard to figure out, because presumably we have Social Security, we maybe have some pensions, we have some rental income, we have some dividends, whatever it is. We have a relatively stable source of income, so that's good. Then we know that there are certain expenses, a portion of which are non-discretionary. You've got bills, you've got utilities, you've got rent or mortgage, whatever you have, things that have to be paid no matter what. And then whatever's left out of that is your non-discretionary income that you can use to travel. And in this example, I've used $30,000. This is annual, and of course, then that's divided into a number of different categories: airfare, food, lodging, etc. So that's our starting point. Have an idea. Just don't go without thinking about it. Have an annual budget, and then you'll be so much more comfortable when you do your traveling. The second thing that's important when you're planning your trip is to know your travel style. So this is tip number 2. Know your travel style. Know who you are. I mean, are you a budget traveler? Are you a mid-range traveler? Or are you a luxury traveler? Or are you a little bit of all of them, but where do you fit most comfortably, in which category? And that is going to determine how much money you're going to spend, which then determines how long you can be gone. We've got the 3 variables. We've got the, how long you're going to be gone, how much it costs, and how comfortable you're going to be. So know that. I mean, I know people that would feel terribly uncomfortable if they were not in a 5-star hotel, no matter where they go. And there are other people that really enjoy budget accommodations and just trying to see how little they can spend. Nothing wrong with that. But just know who you are and where your comfort zone is. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. So, for example, none of us want to spend more money than we have to. We all want to get the most bang for our buck. But it's really false economy to sacrifice your comfort and safety just because something is cheap. I mean, you really have to look at things. If you see something that is really cheap, for example, there's maybe a tour going someplace, and you want to go on that, and you go, wow, that is so inexpensive. How can that be? How can it be so much cheaper than anybody else? Well, maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe the tour guide doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe if it's an overnight thing, maybe you're going to be staying in really crappy lodgings or hotels, and not even mid-range, and maybe that's not what you're comfortable with. So you just have to always make sure that that you feel safe and that you feel comfortable. Most of us that are over 60, we're at the point in our lives where we may not feel as comfortable being in a hostile situation with sleeping with a lot of other people in a bunkhouse kind of thing, and in a lot of countries, you obviously don't need to do that. So anyway, that's tip number 3. Tip 4, manage your expectations. So there you go. Realize that throughout the world, standards are different, and it may not be in many countries that you're traveling to. Their accommodations and so forth may not be up to Western standards. Now the world is changing so fast that you can find Western style hotels or restaurants or anything almost everywhere you go. But in a lot of the world, of course, that's not the case. And so you just have to realize when you're going into a place that it's not going to be what you're used to, and that's the joy of traveling. That's the whole idea, is to see, how do other people live? How do they look at the world? It's different than yours. And I just have to share an example. I was on a trip a few years ago, and I just happened to be with some people, and they were Americans. And one of the ladies, after we finished our day, she looked at some of her friends and she said, this was in Nicaragua, and she said, what a dump. And I thought, it just hurt me to hear her say that. Not the least of which is because there were local people that were around her and heard her comments. I mean, this is where these people live. This is their home. This is where their past and their future is. And so just understand that when you're going places, and take that into your budgeting process. Okay. Tip 5 is what we're getting down to. What this whole thing is about is to create a trip budget. Remember, there are 3 variables: time, destination, and money. Okay, and they're all going to affect each other. So we already know how much money we have. We know from our first part of the exercise here that we have $30,000 to spend. Okay, so now the other 2 are time and destination. How much time can we spend in which destinations? to give us the most satisfaction. So as we're building our trip budget and determining exactly where we want to go and how far we can go with the money that we have, because we know out of our three variables, money, we've got that one nailed down. There's only so much we've got. Okay, so we know almost intuitively that there are certain parts of the world that are a lot more expensive than others. For example, in Europe, I don't know if you can see that, the Scandinavian countries, Switzerland, Monaco, those are going to be expensive places. And so therefore, whatever money you have, it's not going to go nearly as far. On the other hand, inexpensive places in Europe, Romania, the Baltics, Georgia, Armenia, Ukraine, your dollar is going to go a lot farther in those places. And I've been to some of these, and actually, I mean, they're very interesting places. In Asia Pacific region, okay, expensive places, Singapore, Japan, although Japan's not so bad right now, Australia, New Zealand, those are going to be more expensive than places like Laos, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia. Those are Asian destinations where you can travel a long time on a relatively small amount of money. And then, of course, in the Americas, the U.S., we know, is an expensive place to travel and live. And inexpensive places, for example, Mexico, Colombia, Guatemala, Bolivia, places that you, like Bolivia, I don't think a lot of people go to Bolivia, but it could be a very interesting destination, and your dollar's going to go farther. So that's those are good things to know. Okay, now we get into the real nitty gritty of it, and when we actually go to create a travel budget by looking at what are the difference between some of these places, and then make a selection as to where we can go for how much and for how far. And to do this, there is a website that I have found. I'm sure there's a lot of other websites, and you can do this yourself, but it's very helpful, and at least it's a good starting place. The website is called budgetyourtrip.com. budgetyourtrip.com. And I used it the other day, and I'm going to use this in this next example to show you just the difference between how far you can go for your dollar in some of these different locations. So finally here, in terms of putting together our sample travel budget, I would just want to show you some examples from budgetyourtrip.com, and I encourage you to look at that and play with it yourself. You can look at this I picked 3 different countries overall, so not individual cities within those, to give you what a sample travel budget would be, either as what they categorize as either budget or mid-range. I left luxury out of it. So what I did was I looked at 3 different countries: Sweden, which I'd put in the expensive category, Thailand, and Armenia, both in the inexpensive category. And I used both what they would call a budget price or a mid-range budget or mid-range price to use. And then I thought, okay, well, how long could I stay on $30,000, which is our annual travel budget? How could I stay in each of those 3 countries? So for example, I don't know if you can see this, for Sweden, okay, this is in US dollars per person per day. So if it's a budget, it's $56 a day. And if it is mid-range, it's $138 a day for Sweden. Okay, so based on that, you could stay in Sweden for either 535 days if you were on a budget, or 217 days if you were mid-range. Okay, fair enough. I could be there for a year if I'm there on a budget. Now, you have to keep in mind that any of these numbers, they don't count getting there. These are just food, accommodations, just the very basics. So you can go on their website, and then you can find out other things. You have to add in your airfare to get there. Alcohol isn't included. In some countries, alcohol is very expensive. Other places, it's very cheap. Entertainment, miscellaneous costs. So these are, don't use these, of course, as any kind of gospel. It's just this is just an example. Okay, so Thailand. Okay, in the cheaper category, if you're on a budget, budgetyourtrip.com says that you could be there for $25 a day, and if it's you're on mid-range, it's $68 a day. So what that means is you could be there if you're on a budget. You could be there in Thailand for 1,200 days per person. Okay, per person per day. 1,200 days. Oh man, that's like, that's over 3 years or so. Fabulous. Or if you're on a mid-range, 441 days. Armenia. Now here we take the cake. $7.46 a day, if you can see that. For Armenia, if you're on a budget, and $18 a day if you're mid-range. Well, based on those numbers, you could stay in Armenia for either 4,021 days or 1,667 days. Well, you might as well just retire there and die, because that pretty much, for a lot of us, that takes up the rest of our life. But anyway, just use that as a guide if you like, and play with it, and then use your own common sense when you're putting those numbers together. But it gives you it's helpful, I think. And then the last tool that I want to give you is an app that I found and I've been using a little bit. It's called Trail Wallet, and what it is it's very simple. It does the things that on an app that I used to do in a little notebook or by hand. As you can put in your trip, put in like we've done here, what your budget your trip, whatever it is, or no budget for your trip if you just want to track expenses. And they have preset categories in there: food, accommodation, transport, entertainment, miscellaneous, whatever. And you can change categories as you want. And it'll translate between, it'll convert between different currencies. So if you're in a place that uses euros and you want it in your mind to be in dollars, well, you just write down or just punch in each time. I bought a beer and it was 4 euros or whatever it was. Okay, 4 euros, and then it'll come out. Oh, it was $5.50, whatever it is, and it'll keep track of it by day over your whole trip, and it can show you whether you're under budget, over budget, or whatever. And then there's a little cartoon lady there, a little icon who gives you encouragement or scolds you if you're either over or under or over your budget. Okay, so those are the things that I wanted to cover today. For trip budgeting, have a wonderful time on your next trip. And I hope these helped, especially retirees, so that you can travel longer and better. See you next time.